Well, hello and welcome. Another exciting new Championship Rugby League season is upon us, and we've brought the boys back together. You've got myself, you've got Joe Me the Money, and you've got Jimmy. And if you forgot, me and Jimmy know the Championship. Sorry, Joe. We had to get that one in. But no, really, really exciting. If you think back to last season and those amazing playoff games, who would have thought Bradford would have finished third? Who would have predicted London to go to Sheffield, then to go to Featherstone, and then to go to Toulouse and beat Toulouse in Toulouse? A very, very rare feat to win promotion to the Super League. I think the 2024 Championship season is going to be just as good, if not better. Obviously, Wakefield, they have been relegated from the Super League. London have replaced them. And then at the foot of the table, New Boys, Dewsbury and Doncaster, who of course won promotion from League One. Really, really exciting competition. We don't know at this moment in time if it's going to be on Premier Sports or if it will actually have a TV deal. I spoke to the RFL literally before we started recording this, and at the minute the RFL still haven't announced the free-to-air Super League news, so the Championship is firmly down the pecking order. But I guess the saving grace for the Championship is it opens on Friday the 15th of March with Wakefield against Bradford, so there's no real rush at this stage, because it's the first week of February, but it would be great to see some exposure and some television coverage. But as for the Championship itself, Jimmy Joe, wow, where'd you start? You've got Darryl Powell at Wakefield, Matt Ellis pumping the money in. You've got Bradford on the ascent, Sheffield Eagles, who finished fourth. They're going to look to go again. Doncaster, they've come up. They're spending big. Carlisle obviously enjoying back in the Championship. Clearly not there to make the numbers up. They're there to compete and thrive. Dewsbury, obviously, of course, great season. Liam Finn left Dewsbury, got him up now at Halifax. There's so many interesting narratives. Give us your thoughts. What are you expecting from the Championship in 2024?
I'm expecting, obviously, depending on how good you've got Wakey, I guess if you take Wakey out of it, if they're top, one of the best Championship seasons of all time. I think there's so many teams that are exciting. The teams that did bad last year, I think, have recruited a bit savvily, so they might not be spending as much. But I know Whitehaven have picked up some great gems. I know Barrow have obviously gone Super League, some Super League lads who have come down. Then you've got Swinton, who in pre-season have looked brilliant. Dewsbury's first team, I think, can go against anyone. Injuries, they might struggle a bit, but I think it could be one of the best in my lifetime studying the sport. One of the best seasons of all time.
There you go, Joe's calling it. I'm calling it. We love the Championship, Jimmy. An overview. Wow.
Well, I think you summed it up perfectly. Lots of little narratives going on. And like Joe says, I was definitely as excited for last year more than ever before. And this one's no different, yeah. Probably the based on what you've just said before the show, the most interesting thing, which could put a dampener or a bit of a sour taste on it, is going to be which direction we go with structurally for the year after. What we don't want is all this excitement that we have, and I'm sure many fans have, of what's going to be happening at the top, what's going to be happening at the bottom. If it turns out that there's going to be the shift to moving it to a 12-team league and teams start to feel there's not much to play for in the latter stages of the season, it could end up really taking a shine of it. So let's hope they get all that sorted, and there's no reason that teams won't have plenty to play for.
The only thing is, if there is the reported if 4 teams, let's say, do go down, it's not official yet, but if it is, they do go down, I think it's not great for the clubs, but it probably makes it even more interesting, because none of them are going to want to go down. It's a death sentence, isn't it?
Yeah.
None of them are going to want to go down. So whoever's in that bottom 6 or 7, if it's close in that bottom, there you'll probably see some spending on clubs that can afford it, and some big crazy results on teams that are fighting to come out of it. So it might not be great, but I think you'll see see some of the greatest champ games ever of people willing to win and for their teams, for their hometown clubs, fighting, and that's what I'm not excited to be a member of the board at a club there, but I'd be excited as a fan watching.
Yeah.
Well, the latest on the restructuring, there was the sort of penultimate restructuring meeting involving Championship, Super League and League One clubs last week, the last week of January. There's going to be one more in February before the RFL hope, or certainly Tony Sutton and the RFL board hope, that this all gets rubber stamped and everybody then knows what the structure is going to be for 2025. So before a ball is kicked in mid-March, every club knows, because don't forget Championship League One, they both start on the same weekend, because obviously we've got the 1895 Cup and the Challenge Cup fixtures sort of front-loaded at the start of the season. Everybody, before a ball is kicked, before Wakefield Bradford meet at Bellevue on the 15th of March, everybody knows the lie of the land. I'd be, you were doing your Super League preview. I've been on the phone to a couple of League One owners and Championship owners, and the mood seems to be that yes, we all want 3 12s, or certainly a 12-team Super League, a 12-team Championship, and 11 teams in League One, because how you get there is now the interesting scenario. Because do you, as the RFL would like, it would be the easiest way, you relegate 4 teams. 2 go up still. So it's interesting to see how this will all come out. I don't think you can disrelegate 4. I think you'd have to stagger it over 2 years. So without, trying to predict and go too Mystic Meg, obviously this news will come out before a ball is kicked in mid-March. And I would expect it to be staggered. I can't see how they can just suddenly go nuclear and relegate 4 teams or 3 teams or promote 2.
By that you mean that you think they'll get to 3 12s, but in another 2 years time?
Yes,
it's not going to.
That's what I think, Jimmy. I think it's going to be staggered.
Yeah, because
I think to suddenly go,
you can't do that.
Let's use Doncaster as an instance. Carl Hall, Richard Horn. I had a very good lengthy chat with those 2 individuals at the Championship launch at Wakefield over Friday. They're assembling a team that wants to thrive and compete. That wants to be out of those bottom 2. Yeah. The minute you start talking bottom 4, well, clubs have done the finances, they've done the projections based on 2 are going down. Yeah. If they even at this late stage, and I get where the RFL are coming from, before a ball is kicked is the terminology being used, but to change it from 2 to 4, all of a sudden that gap window of jeopardy, it's going skyrocketing, because as we know last season, yes, Newcastle, they were horrific, they were horrendous, they were poor, but then there was that exciting Championship race, which obviously had Whitehaven, Keighley, Swinton, 4 or 5 others involved in it.
To try and avoid the bottom 2 is infinitely easier than avoiding the bottom 4, like you say. So, and regardless, it's very unlikely that 3rd and 4th from the bottom in the Championship wouldn't be stronger than the second place in League One who goes up, and so that at the very least, they'd have to do some form of playoff between the top 2 from League One and the bottom 2, 3 or 4 from the champ to work out who was best. But hopefully they'll do it in a way gradual, probably the best, just so that it doesn't take anything away from the competitiveness.
Yeah, and one look, when we've done this show, I mean we're now 5-6 years old, but prior to the split at Salford in 2018, I like the Super 8s. The Super 8s are going to come back. The RFL have said this, that there is mechanism in place for the Super 8s to come back. And I was thinking about this the other day. The Super 8s are back, so you've got the bottom 4 of the Championship, top 4 of League One. What an exciting concept that's going to be. There's 2 promotion places, there could be 4 promotion places, if those League One clubs, and based on what we saw last year, I don't think there is much between those top playoff chasing sides in League One and that bottom end of the Championship. So it does create that jeopardy, it does create that narrative, it does create that broadcast interest, and ultimately that broadcast interest is the main priority, because if you get the broadcast interest, your money is going to be going up, not going down, as has been the case. And I know fans will have a little bit of a lukewarm response or a very, poor appetite for the return of the Super 8s. But let us know in the comments, do you want the Super 8s to come back? Yes or no? The fact are the broadcasters want them back because it brings that jeopardy and meaningful games.
But does that not also go completely against the IMG grading and promotion?
No, Jimmy, because as the RFL explained to me, the IMG gradings will dictate promotion between the Championship and the Super League. Promotion and relegation between League One and Championship is the RFL. So if they want to bring back the Super 8s, that is how it'll do it. But as it was spoken or communicated to me was how it would still work in a sort of IMG/RFL world between the bottom 4 of the Super League and the top 4 of the Championship is you could still have the bottom 4 of the Super League, the top 4 of the Championship, but they would, rather than having that automatic promotion, you would literally be in that table of 8 for those IMG points. Yes. And as we know, each place in the table is worth 0.11. So you're effectively potentially playing off for near as damn it an extra IMG point, which if you're a Sheffield or a Bradford or a Featherstone or a York and you are there or thereabouts, that is music to your ears. Plus, you've also got the added bonus of welcoming those bottom 4 Super League teams to your Championship stadium. But there's a long, long way to go, and I'm almost certain that this next meeting, the next one, that could be the big explosive one. I hope in terms of clubs being allowed to voice their opinion. Because just quickly on this, David Hughes has put out a statement criticising IMG because London obviously know they are coming straight back out in the Super League. But, like Tony Sutton, when I spoke to him at great length when we had the RFL Media Day last week, Tony said, 84%, there was only really Keighley and Featherstone who were against IMG. A lot of the clubs have gone to these meetings or sent representatives and they've voted it through. It's no good now screaming and carrying on, and crying.
But he wasn't, was he?
No. But David's made some very pertinent points, Jimmy. But what I'm saying is, it's no good saying you don't support IMG when London as a club voted for it to happen. It's just a very, very rare case where the system is now being tried, tested, and absolutely pulled apart.
Surprising what people expected.
Yeah, because London obviously.
Just for very quickly, last thing on that I want to ask you is, if the Super 8s came in and you've got the bottom 4 of Super League with the top 4 of the Championship competing at the end of the year for effectively not far off the points, so or at least half a point, the advantage that gives for Super League teams to score an extra half point over the Championship teams is huge because they'll have been full time on quadruple the budget at least for a year, and then they've got a chance to gain a further advantage over them. Do you see what I'm saying? So if a team comes top of a Championship and they've done all they can, but then they have to go up against a Super League club who've been full time in the Super 8s and they end up with their positions, the Super League clubs are gonna gain further points advantage over them in IMG's eyes. Is that correct?
No. This is what they need to sort out, Jimmy. The IMG points table for the clubs is all in a league, so it wouldn't be where you finish. It'd be where you finish in the Super 8s. That is how you get your IMG.
Yeah, that's
points.
what I'm saying. But you
wouldn't get extra. The extra bonus for the Championship clubs is they can actually end up in those 12th, 11th. 8 4 9 9 4 8
Okay,
and they can effectively get more than what they do now. Featherstone finished top last year. They only got an additional 0.25 IMG points for finishing top. By playing the bottom 4, they could go up to 9th and they could effectively get another 0.44 on top of that.
Right, brilliant then. Cheers.
I know it's hard to explain and understand, but
that sounds really
I've always been a fan of the Super 8s, and I hope they do come back again. How it all gets implemented, we don't know, but we'd just be speculating. But I mean, we do know the structure's going to change. We just don't know how. But yes, let's start Championship. Obviously, all change will start. I'm trying to think alphabetically, but we'll start with Batley Bulldogs because obviously Craig Lingard's out, Mark Moxon's in. They had a big thumpish sort of win against a very youthful reserve Wakefield side. They did draw 12 points apiece against Dewsbury on Boxing Day in a game littered with those play the ball rules. And the less said about that, the better. But how do we realistically think Batley are going to go? Because no secret, Kevin Nichols runs a very, very tight ship there. And Craig Lingard, he has worked with limited resources for a number of years, which is probably why he's been attracted to the Castleford Tigers post, because Castleford, very similar to Batley, they don't have a lot of money to spend. And Craig Lingard, pound for pound, he does turn water into wine. But obviously Mark Moxon's coming in now. How do we see Batley post Craig Lingard? They've lost James Meadows, he's gone back to London. They've obviously signed the Gibson brothers. But I do think, I know we said this last year, and I think we did the year before, but there's still, battling last season, Jimmy, they were there or thereabouts competing for the playoff. For the 1895, I think.
Final,
took a little bit of gas out of them. But this year, I think it is going to be one of those years where I think Batley obviously do. It's going to be a totally different Batley Bulldogs that you see. Very fierce and competitive at home, but I do feel I've not got them as high as last year. I've definitely got them in.
They don't have a star fullback. They've lost.
Which explains why they're trying to get Billy Jowett from Bradford.
I mean, that was very unfortunate because they signed Josh Raw, didn't they? And there were clubs fighting over him, and they stuck with it right till the end. And then obviously, I don't think they'd had him a week or two, had they? And he's gone.
So
you've got a feel for Batley, but they were up against it anyway. And then the recruitment was really unfortunate, losing two of their key players.
I think it doesn't. I think the culture's there. That's good, and it's ingrained in it. And to be fair, even Craig when you'd speak to Craig about the culture, he'd give a lot of the credit to Mark, the assistant coach. When to be fair to him, he'd always say, "No, Mark does a lot of the coaching, a lot of the training. Mark's ingrained in that culture." So I don't think there'll be a massive change in terms of the will to win, the fight. Just like you said, they've lost quality and replaced it with youth, and that normally means there might be a tough start to the year. Will it come good at the end of the year? It might do, but I don't think we see the top 2, 3, 4 Batley team that we've seen for the last 5 or 6 years now, and I think it is a rebuild year. You just don't want to see them collapse. You want to see them stay in and fight, and then go, well, look at this youth team we've got going forward now. We've still got the old guard, but we've now brought something through for the first time in God knows how many years, and that's Mark's challenge, in it, balancing the youth with the product on the field.
Because they've still got your Elliot Kears,
your Danes,
your Jimmy Browns, obviously, Dale Morton, Brandon Moore's obviously joined from Halifax.
Yeah, nice.
So they do have Lucas Walshaw, of course, who's a championship veteran. They do still have that experience and very, what I would call very physical, tough championship players. You look at people like James Brown, for instance, you know exactly what you're going to get from him, don't you? He's what I would class as a typical seasoned pro championship player. But yeah, you're all right. I think losing Josh Rourke and obviously James Meadows so late in the day, when obviously Mr. Moxon's trying to build his team and get that spine, because that, as we know in rugby league, the spine is absolutely it's imperative. But I can't remember where Batley finished last year. I think they were they 8th above Halifax? Apologies. Or they were there or thereabouts, weren't they? They were in that battle with York, Halifax, Widnes, right till the death, and it was only post 1895 that the results did really tail off. And
they got to the final. It's probably still a fairly successful year with the product.
It's the first time they've ever been to Wembley in their history. Great occasion for Kevin Nichols.
Yeah, they ended up 7th, and they were level on points with York in 6th for the playoffs.
Yeah, they were there or thereabouts, Jimmy. Yeah,
to finish above Halifax, which
it's a fantastic season.
At the start of last year, I think I had Halifax comfortably in the top 4. Never mind not making the playoffs. So they did it again last year against all odds. I'm sure again they'll overachieve this year. But again, I've not got him in the playoffs. But I hope they prove me wrong, and they probably will again.
Well, we're doing this championship preview, so rather than saying what position, they finished 7th last year, Jimmy. And we're going higher or lower. Higher or lower.
Higher, lower.
I'm 7. I'm going. You can say stick and
I've
say
got, I've got stick.
Stick at 7. Sorry, Batley fans. I'm going maybe 1 or 2 places lower, but you're going to be safe.
I'm going. Just.
Oh no, sorry. I've got 1 lower.
Well, you've just said stick, Jimmy.
Yeah, but I thought my maths
Right.
again.
Jimmy's going lower. I'm going lower.
Lower.
There we go. We've all gone lower. Batley.
Yeah.
Prove us wrong. Right, moving on. Barrow. Joe, you mentioned that they've got a couple of Super League players.
They signed Aaron Smith. They signed a few from the Wigan. And
I mean, the Aaron Smith signing is really astute because he was billed as like the new kid on the block at Saints not so long ago, and obviously St Helens have obviously parted ways with him, but Barrow have come in. How do we see Barrow? Because for all intents and purposes, when I saw Barrow a number of times last season when they were playing either Featherstone, Bradford or Halifax in the flesh, they did the double over Bradford, for instance. I know those were 2 poor Bradford performances in isolation, but credit where credit's due. At that point, Barrow were very much fighting a relegation battle. But, Paul Carey, as Paul Carey always does, he got the best out of his side and they were clear of safety come the end.
With Barrow, if you asked me 2 months ago, I'd say, oh wow, we're talking bottom 1 or 2. They've picked up a few in the last month or 2. That's made me think that they're coming out here and they're solidifying a squad. I think they only had 18 or 19 contracted players at one point in the pre-season, or healthy players, in the pre-season, and now they've filled it out with 2 or 3 nice signings. They'll survive. They're a surviving club, aren't they? They've got a good year. I think they can survive. It's going to be interesting because I don't know, Mick. Because I had Whitehaven above them with some of their side. I think they've made some very astute signings, but then if Barrow have gone, oh, I see you, I'm the match you, and I don't know where to stand with him. I think it's going to be so interesting watching them Cumbrian clubs battle it out because they'll be first one this weekend. I'm devastated. I'm not watching it live and it's not on TV because that's a big statement for whoever wins this weekend.
You don't fancy a trip up to the Rec?
Not this early in the year, Nick. Not this early.
Wait till it warms up.
Yeah.
Jimmy, your thoughts on Barrow?
I think Joe's nailed it. I was with him in the sense that they seem to be. That last year was so tough. But last year, I constantly believed that they would not go down and they'd start picking up wins. But it took a lot longer than I thought. I kept thinking next week, but it just seemed to go on forever. They did just enough last year. A few weeks ago, I'm thinking that team doesn't look as strong. But like Joe says, a couple of nice little signings. And as always, I think it's going to be so tight down there. We'll look at what happened last year where there was 1 point between, 4 teams who could have gone down. I'm expecting similar again this year. It's always tricky to go there. I think when I'm looking at what could be the difference between some of those clubs, I think we'll be near the bottom. It's always a tough away day, but then it's always harder for them to make the trip to Yorkshire. So higher or lower than last year. They actually came 11th last year. I'm more worried that they could be lower than that than I think they will be higher than that.
Wow.
I'm sticking 11. I think they'll. How many teams is there again? 14. Oh no! Oh God! That's so tough.
Jimmy's going lower.
I do think they could be in that bottom.
I was lower.
Jimmy's got them in the relegation battle, effectively.
Yeah, they're in the relegation. I don't want to be too specific.
I've got them in the
so hard, but relegation.
I'll go lower than
11th.
Oh, it's stick/lower.
Bottom 4,
Stick/lower.
Well, yeah, I am going to say higher. I've got them 9th or 10th. I think there will be improvement.
Right.
I don't think they'll be searching for the first win like they were doing.
No.
I know they had that 18-all draw against Newcastle early doors last season, and whilst they were still winless, obviously the narrative is when are they going to get the win? But they did get the wins together, and I just cannot see Barrow having as poor a season as they did last year.
I agree, but then I think about that and I look at the teams who I think are going to be top 7, and I think they're going to be So hard to beat.
No,
They beat Bradford twice last year.
I know,
and there's always these weird results.
Yeah, exactly. Whitehaven did the double over Sheffield.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I've got Barrow. We're not talking fourth or fifth.
No,
slightly higher than. Yeah. Maybe 9 4.
We're all agreed for a bottom half team.
Yes, they're a bottom. If we're going to say the bottom half is the bottom seven. They are a bottom seven.
It's going to be hard for them to.
They have an interesting Challenge Cup game at home against Oldham coming up. I mean, that's now going to be on the BBC. So that's the BBC's pick. That will be absolutely rocking, that game on the Saturday afternoon, because I'm really intrigued to see how that one goes, especially after Oldham's win over Halifax at the weekend.
I bet that's one draw Oldham didn't fancy. I
Going
think
up to
they'd rather
Barrow.
have played a higher rated team and be underdogs slightly rather than have that tough trip away.
Do you think Oldham will be favourites for that one, Jimmy?
Yeah, they'll be favourites.
Wow. Moving on, Bradford. Here we go. This is probably what I can see them all now.
Nice and early.
Why change the habit of a lifetime? Whenever I mention Bradford, they go, here we go, it's Bradford Bulls TV. Bradford, third place finish last year. Obviously, the rebuilding taking place at the club. Lee Greenwood has stepped back after replacing Mark Dunning during the season. And there's a new boy in charge, Eamon O'Carroll. I like Eamon really much. I've got to have that sort of journalist kind of head coach relationship. And I think his honesty and his passion is rubbing off, and it's connecting the club and the fan base together. Obviously, Bradford finished third last year, and I think it's very keen to point this that was only one result or two results from seeing Bradford not in the playoffs. That is how tight the championship is. So whilst I can sit here with a beaming smile on my face, because Bradford obviously got third place IMG points, which puts them in a very, very realistic chance of getting into Super League, because they are just behind Castleford, they are just behind Lee, they are just behind Wakefield and Toulouse in the IMG table. That third place finish has given Bradford that realistic chance of being in the Super League. But on-field performance is still vitally important. It's only 25% of the pillars, but on-field performance is still vitally important. And obviously it is kind of a little bit of continuity is there, but there's still been 16 players out, 9 players in. And I think what's going to be interesting with Bradford this year is who comes in between now and that opening game against Wakefield, because obviously there's the sad news, Jimmy, about Tom Holmes, which we can perhaps maybe touch upon a little bit. There's obviously the news that Brad England's obviously left and gone to Featherstone. It's no secret Billy Jowett, who was going to be the fullback, he's very injury prone, and Billy will be the first person to admit that. He does suffer from bad back, so he's currently out with a bad back. So that means Bradford have had to go to Huddersfield for Aidan McGowan, who's kind of seen as the sort of short-term replacement for Tom Holmes, while Tom Holmes obviously liaises with the hospital staff and hopefully, touch wood, everything is okay and he gets the all clear. Yeah. But certainly when I look at Bradford, you've got your great players like your Michael Lawrence's, your leaders who talk about the culture and instilling that winning culture and mentality and professional standards. But I do look at the spine, and I am worried about the spine. I'm worried about that spine, and I do feel that is where the club should strengthen. And obviously Brad England probably needs to be replacing, but there's a great kid called Elliot Piposhi. I don't know if he's been on your radar, but he's one of the Saints players. He's just signed a 1-year deal from the club. They've got Danakora, who I think is a very good friend of yours, Joe. He's one of your players. Aribi Doro has absolutely tore into pre-season. There's rumours Castleford.
Aribi's played awesome this year.
I mean, again, I don't want to be guilty of spreading rumours or untruths, but I've heard Castleford are looking at Aribi and potentially one of those players. I mean, no disrespect to Craig Lingard, but if you're going to sign Sammy Kabula, I think I've got Aribi Doro ahead of Kabula in terms of his performance. But yeah, Bradford on a whole, that feel-good factor is back. And, I think we said this last year, Bradford fans have had a lot of pain in recent years, but now that stability is there because they've had 4 or 5 years now where the bills are all paid on time, the support base is growing, they've sold more season ticket sales for this year than they did last year, and Bradford, of course, were the highest supported team in the championship. We know that's probably going to fall to Wakefield this year with Matt Ellis doing the cheap season tickets to sort of re-energise and rejuvenate Wakefield. But yeah, Bradford, I've got them firmly in the top 6. in terms of
Higher, lower. Higher, lower.
no,
You've got to give it no. You've got to give it. I'm not letting you away from higher, lower first, mate. We want to hear your opinion.
Well,
you've got the insider.
Yes, I know, but I'm just trying to speed things up because apparently your Super League preview was 2 hours and 40 minutes. But no, look. One thing I will say about Bradford is, at long last, they are now dealing with the Odsal pitch.
Are they?
They're knowing how to play it, Joe. They're not dealing.
I thought they were dealing with it. I was about to say my thing.
No, they're dealing with how to play and win on it. I was talking to your dad about it, and Craig was spot on. You get them first 4 carries, Michael Lawrence, Eben Sker, Danakora, and Aribidora. There's nothing you can do because the forwards just tear straight through. And let me tell you, I don't know if you've actually watched the game back or you've seen the highlights, but Mitch Suter, what a buy he is. If I'm going to predict like a young hot prospect from the Championship, Mitch Suter, he gets it. Not just because he's a Bradford player, but when you watch his performances in pre-season, a lot of Championship coaches are saying to me, Mick, where have you got him from? I'm like, well, he's come from Canberra, from the New South Wales comp. The bloke is just fit. His athleticism is phenomenal.
You said he's winning all the fitness tests.
Yeah. He is. I've had, I won't name names, but a number of coaches have messaged me on WhatsApp and like, Mick, how fit is he? We're watching the highlights of Bradford games and he's on, he can do the 80 minutes just like that. And he, goes from 0 to 60 in the blink of an eye. And with this new ruck interpretation where the hips have to be dead set central or it's a penalty, that's then just allowing players like Mitch, and I think this is where the game's probably going to open up and be a lot more exciting and competitive as a spectacle to fans, is it will allow those runs straight out of dummy half and you can make 15, 20 metres down the middle if you find a support player under the post. But look...
Higher, lower.
You put me on the spot. Based on everything I have seen, and Bradford finished 3rd last year, knowing what all the other clubs are doing, slightly lower. I have got Bradford in the top 6.
Yeah.
But slightly lower. So I'm sorry, Eamon. I'm sorry, Jason. I think Bradford will be 4th or 5th.
I'm probably on your side, Mick. I think with some of the losses, and obviously with Tom exceptionally sad, and I'm wishing all the best. And but with some of the losses, and I just watching Bradford in pre-season, I think they're going to struggle, and I picked out a word, strike. I think they've got the middle pack at home. There's not enough space for the oppositions to attack to even worry about it. I think their home record's going to be ridiculously good this season. That pack, Dan Smith, like you said, Michael Lawrence, Aribe's been awesome. Danakora, Eben Sker, the pack is just going to completely dominate at home. It's going to be, and there's not enough space to tire them out in defence. Away from home, I think that's where I watched them at Fev. And I thought, wow, they should have. I feel like they probably should have won the game, but they didn't have enough strike.
Correct. Yes.
Fev had Tom Lacarnes. 2 minutes after 5 minutes, Tom had in the second half bang step try, bang step assist, or he won them the game. I don't see where Bradford have that. And I think that's throughout the whole Kieran Gill's ledger. I don't know if he's got that pure thing. He's a brilliant finisher. I just don't see the player where they have that strike and can get them that try. So same as you, lower, still top 6. But I think they'll have to get someone in to get the tries. I
spoke to Kieran Gill. I don't mind sharing this. Obviously the service when Dec Patton was the Dec Patton that apparently we're now seeing at Swinton. I think he's won man of the match in every game that Swinton have played so far. If you get that Dec Patton, Kieran Gill was the first to admit, the service, the distribution, first class. You're right, Joe. From what I've seen, Kieran Gill's not getting that same, I wouldn't say quality, but that same level of service. So I know Gilly's had the top try scorer for the last 2 years. This year it might be someone else, but yeah, I tend to agree. That's my notion. The forward pack at home, you can't tire him out. You can't go around him. You've got to go through him. And no offence, you're not. I mean, John Davis as well. John. He's gone. He's a man mountain. It's ridiculous, and that's clearly the way Eamon is assembling that side. And it might not be pretty, but if it's getting you results, and you've got to play with the limitations of Odsal. But yeah, me and Joe have gone slightly lower. Jimmy,
I agree with everything you said. I think Tom's a huge loss for what he brings in attack. Well known. I'm not Dec Patton's biggest fan overall, but on a good day, he's brilliant. I'm a big fan of Lily's work ethic, but he doesn't have that same creativity Dec does. And Gaskell is a class above anyone when he's on, but he's not always on based on last year. So at home, I think you'll have a great record. Totally agree with everything you both said. On the road, I can see you getting beaten by a lot of the other top 6-7 teams when it's on their terms, with a bit more space, a bit faster pitch. But I've got you in the playoffs. Eamon seems great, like you say. He's going to bring different ideas to what's been done so far. It's got to be dead close, fighting for the playoff spots. I've not got you comfortably in the playoffs. I think that you're going to be scrapping, because I just think it's too tight again. Like last year, I just think it's going to be so similar. But I think your home record and using that Odsal pitch to your benefit will be what gets you in. If you do, without it, I'd be more concerned.
Just a bit more negative than us.
No, it's fine.
I've got you. Obviously, I've got you lower because last year third was a bit flattering, I'd say.
Just a little bit, Jimmy, while we've got this on, obviously a bit sensitive, but how is Tom? Obviously, he's put the statement out now. Great to see Jason Hurst, the CEO of the club, and obviously Eamon O'Carroll. He's there on match days. He's helping behind the scenes. They're really supporting Tom through a real difficult period in his personal life and not just his rugby league career.
Yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. Yeah, it's the club are doing all they can to support him, keeping him involved, and as you'll see from his statement, I think still there's a lot he needs to know and he's still waiting to hear. So fingers crossed that the news he gets next time is more positive, but it's still a lot of uncertainty around his situation. So just wish him all the best, obviously.
So we've all got Bradford
in the playoffs,
slightly lower. Yeah, Jimmy's probably a little.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they come top 3 again. To be fair, with that pack, I think it's the best pack I've seen in a while.
It is. It's almost going back to the old awesome foursome days. Moving on, Featherstone Rovers. All change at Featherstone in terms of how they approach the game. No, long gone are the days where Mark Campbell is going to say, "Here's £1 million, Sean Long, you go sign all these star players." Costs have been cut. No secret. The budget's down to about 400,000, 450,000. James Ford, they've shown loyalty. He's still remained in post despite obviously the failures of last season. And let's just be honest and call it as it was. That has to go down as one of the worst rugby league failures in many a year. You walk the division, you finish top. You're putting tweets out leading up to the game against London, the semi-finals. We beat you 50 odd at London. We put 60 on you here. How much is it? How many are we going to put on you on Sunday? And ultimately,
did they say that?
Only fans, not the club officials.
No, the club did. Yes, yeah. The club was rubbing it in. Yeah, seriously. Jimmy, that tweet did come out. It was, "We beat you 56 something at Cherry Record Stadium. We put 60 on you at Post Office Road. This is the third meeting. How many will it be on Sunday?" No, seriously, whether or not Mike Eccles used that to fire up London, but in terms of Featherstone Rovers, and I do get called a bit of a Featherstone basher, but I'm only stating the facts here. The amount of money that Mark Campbell spent on that Featherstone Rovers side, that Leon Price, that Sean Long, that James Ford had at his disposal to finish top, walk the division, and then crumble in that one-off game, it's got to go down as one of those rugby league disasters.
Yeah.
But 2024, it's all change. They're still, in my opinion, a very, very solid top 6 team.
Yeah.
They are still going to be very, very formidable at home at Post Office Road. As you saw, Joe, from the pre-season game against Bradford, that wasn't a Featherstone Rovers side as we come to expect. And the message from Matt Campbell when he spoke to me was, "You just watch me. We're going to gradually improve as the season progresses. More and more players will be coming." But, you look at players like Ben Reynolds. He was a class above everybody on the field in that game against Bradford. And, Danny Addy needs no introduction. You know what he can do. Obviously, he's dropped down from Super League to the champ. That is still a very, very capable Featherstone Rovers side. And obviously,
we had some some top rugby league executive messages saying could be the best left edge in champ by a long way. I believe it's, like you said, it's Danny Addy, Ben Reynolds, second rower is, help me out, Mick, you're nodding at me there, help me. So then it goes the centre, Greg Minikin.
Yeah, Greg Minikin.
And then the wing,
Gareth Gale.
Gareth Gale could be the best left edge.
You mentioned second rower, and I was looking at Jimmy. I thought Jimmy was going to come in.
No, I don't. No, I think the left edge, the left back rower is. Who is it? Oh God, it's embarrassing. We're on about it the other day, same thing, but yeah.
Best left edge. It's got the best left edge in.
So you're putting that up against like Wakefield's with McGilvery and
big toe for toe, yeah. I think it would be toe for toe.
Big call.
Because they're all ex Super League players, aren't they? McGilvery's class above, so that'd be tough. Gareth Gale's got a tough match up there, but like you said, Greg Minikin, Warrington last year, was a cast stalwart. Then you go in with the.
It did look all right, to be fair. Greg Minikin in that pre-season game.
Danny Addy around there might be the. You know what I mean? You've got, and then Ben Reynolds was a decent starter in the top 5-6 Super League club last year. So you've got a very good left edge there that would go toe for toe with probably some middle to bottom Super League.
But Joe, no secret that
the depth, and it's the
depth is a real worry. When that Featherstone team sheet come, even some Harden Featherstone fans were looking and like, who are these? You know, they do need to strengthen. There's no secret about that. Injury suspensions will come and bite. Where have we got Featherstone? Because last year they finished top, they walked it. Inevitably, I've already called it. It is going to be lower. I think they will do well to get third.
Yeah, I think lower it's got to. With Wakey in there, it's got to be lower on it. It's an easy call. That one. I don't think Fed fans will be insulted.
Yeah,
but I'd love to know from a Featherstone point of view what their actual expectations as Featherstone fans are.
Still got to be top.
I think at the moment their 17 is, I'd have them as certainly like fourth best 17 minimum, and we believe they're going to keep adding to that. It sounds like they're going to be vulnerable early on.
Yes,
you know, if they're probably going to get better and better if they don't have an obscene amount of injuries. I can't see them not making the playoffs. I think they'll sneak top 4.
Just a quick one, Brad England, Jimmy. He's obviously left Bradford and gone.
He's a good addition, isn't it? I think he'll get a good opportunity there early doors, and then I think it'll be up to him to we can't remember who that back row was at left edge, but I think
I'm literally we need to go. I'm searching.
But he's doing my. You know, I think he'll have a chance on the right or even in the middle. Won't surprise me if Fordy uses the middle.
Yeah.
If he can get some game time in over the next few weeks and hopefully make it very hard for Fordy to drop in once. You know, there's a couple of players still to come back into. Mackenzie Yea's not back. Wellington Albert's not back.
Yeah, they're still out.
So I think Fairville. And Fordy's a proven quality championship coach who'll get the best out of them. Ben Reynolds, like you say, you know, he's a class above most now. So... And in the championship, probably.
And what I saw from the highlights, I mean, I wasn't at the game, I wanted to quickly see the highlights. They did appear to be clicking. I mean, I know Hunslet, obviously, they've had a lot of changes in League One, but certainly that 60-point win they put on Hunslet, who last season were challenging.
Brad Day,
who were you know, competing for promotion. You know, that was a very good performance, what I saw on the highlight reel against Hunslet. Yeah. So, the injuries on the day, there's still a formidable side.
Yeah, totally.
You can... You know, they will put at some point, I'm sure, 40, 50, 60 on sides.
Yeah.
But like you say, Jimmy, I tend to agree. Early part of the season, very, very vulnerable, and that's when you might look to...
Well, they've got Batley first game. You know, if they get through that one, and if they get through it comfortably, like, oh, fair play. But, you know, that'd be one... That's probably one fixture that every club worries about, isn't it? Batley away, and they got that first. So, that's a huge...
Featherstone's first three, Batley away... Wakefield and then Bradford at home. So
tough
very
start.
interesting. Moving on, Halifax, an interesting one this one because obviously last season they massively underperformed. I think they finished 8th or 9th, Jimmy. You'll be able to say. They did win the 1895 Cup, so they did get the day out at Wembley. But as I'm keen to stress and get this message to a lot of Bradford fans who say, "Well, Mick, we want a day out at Wembley," but I'm like, "But you would not want a day out at Wembley to win 0.1 IMG points at the detriment of a playoff place finish where you can potentially get an extra 4 or 5 other points. So, for instance, Bradford finishing 3rd, Halifax finishing 9th. You know, Bradford ended up with basically 0.7, nearly a full IMG point more because of where they finished in the table. But Liam Finn's in. Simon Grick's obviously gone to Hull FC. How do we think it'll all come together at Halifax? Because obviously Greg Eden's coming, the big one, Gareth Riddop. I mean, I got absolutely trashed because I said Gareth Riddop's coming, and everybody said no, he's not. No, listen, let's say it as it is. I got tipped off by a Halifax director. He don't like Matt Shaw. Anyway, I'm saying it as it is. But no, on a serious note, I got tipped off he's coming. Whether I should have put it out there, I don't know. But, you know, it was refuted by a number of people and then he come anyway. But no, joking aside.
The big question for me, I kind of think they've lost Walmsley, who scored 47 tries, I think, last year, and a bucket load the year before. Number 1 championship winger, probably along with someone like Bish, maybe Gaz Gale, but a total try scoring machine. Massive loss, but they've effectively swapped him with Greg Eden, who I'm sure will pick up the mantle, no problem. So, probably the big one is Widdop. He's a big signing, a big name signing, but it's been a while, I think, most will agree, before we've seen an awful lot out of him. He could easily just cruise championship level and play with a dinner jacket on and be a class act. He could also potentially not play more than 15 games. I just don't know. And I think for me, because I've got it so tight, he's such an important part. They've got Keys and Geoffrey, who are a lovely little partnership, but if they can throw him into the mix and they don't need to worry about injuries in the halves, and they've got that covered, because there's not many other championship teams who've got that luxury. With a couple of additions like Brandon Douglas, one of the best middles in the comp, added in there, they've got to do better than last year, but it's so tight up there. It's you know, I'm looking at the teams I've got in those playoffs, and they're in and around it. You know, it's tough, so tough. They've got to be a lot better. Finn is clearly a brilliant coach, but they've got to get it going straight away. You know, and that was such a shame from their point of view to lose to Oldham, because it was a very tricky game. There's no, you know, it's not an embarrassing defeat by any stretch. It would have just been nice for him to get off to winning ways. And now that probably puts a bit more pressure on him to get off to a good start in the league.
Just on Gareth Widdop, is the risk, is one of the championship high earners?
Must be.
Is the risk there? I mean, obviously there's associated risk, but like you've just said, Jimmy, you know, if you only get 15 games out, I mean, I spoke to Gareth Widdop just briefly at the recent Keighley Halifax game, because he was actually taking the pre-match training. And he said he's not going to be playing for a number of weeks because he's not match fit. So he's obviously targeting, in my opinion, the start of the season. He might maybe end of February. That's 4th round Challenge Cup tie. So I know Halifax have got Whitehaven at home. If they can get past that, then that might be the game where he makes his debut. But, you know, how much risk is there on that player?
I don't know.
They've got the very good spine of Woodburn Hall, Keys and Geoffrey.
I don't know what his contract is. You know, I don't know much about him. So there's only a risk if they pay the fact. The contract could be to do with how much he plays. It could be that he's going to help with coaching. I don't know. But like I say, I just don't know. He could play 15 games. It's a bit like Gailey at Wakey. He could play 15 games and look another level completely, but he could also, you know, get injured after 2 games.
But we know he's not on. We know he's on a lot of money.
Jimmy, he's one of the Jimmy. I know.
He'll be on a.
I can't say what he's on, but I know it's fact. He'll be a top 5. He'll be a top 5 championship earner. Yes.
But I think there's a massive risk with him because he has.
But I don't think he'll be on like 80 grand. I think he'll be on like 40, 50 grand tops.
No more.
Oh, do you?
Right. I'm not saying the number, but
right.
I don't know the exact number, but I know it's not going to be small. It's for Gaz Widdop, ex-England international, to go down to Halifax. It's big money.
Yeah, but I don't think we were Super League interested. He had to go down. We know loads of championship.
But at his age, you might as well retire. If it's the money's not there, he would have just retired. We know with other games.
Well, that's why I think it might be. I think it might be more like 40 than 80. Though I don't think it's out stupid, but I don't know. So
well, whatever. It's going to be a lot anyway, isn't it? But I think there's a massive risk there. So, you know what I mean, he's got to perform, and they'll invest in him to perform. He's a championship version of a marquee, as marquee as you can get.
100%, and that's why I wanted to put a bit of spotlight on Gareth Widdop, because when you line everybody up, he is the big name. He is the big name.
Yeah, I'm with you. You've got to see him play well. He's obviously talented enough to play with slippers on. We'll get on to another team of a player who's come down who they just can't believe how good he is. You've got to hope they're saying the same about Gareth. I think it's shown me we've got a couple there. I don't know what they've been saying about Gareth massively yet, so let's hope they come out the woodwork and say, oh no, he's a class above.
One thing I'll say about Halifax just quickly is how they organise this dual reg relationship with Leeds, because if it's the shit show, and I hope that doesn't get taken off YouTube, but if it's that shit show that Bradford had with Leeds last year, where, you know, you might be expecting a Sam Walters, you might be expecting a James Donaldson, but you're not getting that type of player, you're getting a lot younger, inexperienced types of player, then that might not be as lucrative as some Halifax fans appear to be making that deal out.
I think they already know the exact situation it's going to be. It's not going to be like the relationship Bulls have with Bradford, where some Rhinos players were being sent and pretty much had to play. Yes. This is going to work both ways, where it's younger players who are needing championship game time, but thoroughly believed to be up to it. But at the same time, if Halifax don't need help, they don't have to take any. So it sounds to me, from what I've heard from both sides, that's going to work totally fine. The question probably is, it would arguably be, if Halifax need to use it a lot, that's probably showing that they've not got an awful lot of depth, especially in the pack, and that's where, you know, they might come unstuck if we're looking for kinks in those playoff team armour. Halifax's depth in the middle is not massive, but I think that'll work well.
Yes. They had a very poor 2023, Jimmy. How's 2024 going to go for Liam Finn and Halifax? I'll be brutally honest. I'm sticking. I think they will miss out on the playoffs again. I'm sticking.
I have actually got them, and I've got them just missing out by one. I've got one place higher than last year, but I've got you pipping them to the playoffs.
So don't say Bradford. I'm doing this independent.
Yeah, I only because I'm looking for chinks in the arm, and I don't think they've quite got the same depth in the pack.
That's the worry.
The outside backs class, coach class, a couple of their middles class, but the depth is what worries me.
And when so much getting,
and younger Leeds players, I think they'll be brilliant, but other teams seem to have perhaps more support from Super League clubs who are going to send their fringe players, and they're the little things that might, you know, I've given Bradford the edge on him for that last playoff spot based on, you know, that being their king.
Fair enough. Joe, I've gone same. I think they're staying where they were last year.
I was going to say higher, but then I've just seen Jimmy's list and actually concepts like, is it 6 in the playoffs?
6 in the playoffs.
6, Joe, yes.
So many good teams.
Top 6. You can only have 6 in the champ.
Yeah. God, that's a tough one, isn't it? Yeah, I'll have to stick then. Yeah,
Wow.
It kills me. I think they should do higher. I love Finney as a coach.
They should do a lot better than last year, but because everyone else is strengthened.
As daft as it sounds, I do think they'll do a fair bit better than last year.
But because the standards are all improving.
And I think other teams
just a little bit.
Yeah, so I think, and I certainly wouldn't be surprised if they come 4th. I don't think there'll be anything between 4th and 7th. I agree. Similar to last year's.
Moving on, let's do the new boys. Dewsbury and Doncaster. Wow. Dale Ferguson obviously taking the reins from Liam Finn. They host Halifax, game number 1.
Yes.
And like I said to Dale Ferguson when I spoke to him at the championship launch, by the way, if you're watching this, Dale, we know you've been in hospital and you've had a few health issues. Hope you're okay. And he's now back out of hospital and he's putting the weight back on. So he told me he'd lost about 5 stone and He's looking very, very slim and trim, and obviously on the back of the illness, which we hope you're over with. But yeah, Dale's really pumped, and I know they had a very
disappointing result
against Keighley. I spoke to you, Jimmy, before, didn't I, the week? I said I spoke to the Keighley boys. I won't say what they thought the score would be, but it was near as pretty much what the scoreboard ended being. So
they were very confident.
They were very confident with Keighley, and I think ultimately that is what the championship's about. If you don't turn up on any given day, you will get beat. We saw it last year with Whitehaven doing the double over Sheffield. I think Swinton beat him as well. Barrow doing the double over Bradford. If you don't turn up, Swinton, I think, beat Toulouse early doors as well. So if you don't turn up in that championship, you are getting beat. But when you think to Dale Ferguson as a player and obviously the qualities, that'll transfer into his coaching skills. But Dewsbury do look very susceptible. Jimmy, when you look at what they've got now and you compare that to last year and the League One
I think that,
team,
in a nutshell, I think maybe that result at Keighley was what they needed now
to wake up
and be like, look, this is. I couldn't see anything other than a really close game there. But that everyone you speak to at Dewsbury, the assistant coach at the end gave a very damning interview.
I saw it on YouTube. He says it was embarrassing.
It was. I thought that was rather extreme, but I'm sure in the moment I can understand it. But I think that, as with most, Dewsbury's 17 is good, and they showed in a couple of the friendlies that they will be able to compete. No doubt about it. They cannot afford any injuries at all.
Yes.
They're going to get some help from Huddersfield, but again, we don't know to what extent and how good a quality they'll bring in. The main thing I think with Donny and Dewsbury, you mentioned them both, is Donny have recruited in a totally different way to Dewsbury, maybe treble, or double the budget. So you feel that Doncaster is significantly stronger than last year, whereas Dewsbury are arguably a little bit weaker than last year, losing a couple of key players. So Dewsbury have got it all to do. They absolutely need brilliant team spirit, togetherness, and fight, and be really up for it. Because if they don't have that, it's going to be a very long, hard season. So I hope that they can, a lot of them stuck together last year when they could have moved on, didn't they? There was quite a few players who could have easily moved to other clubs, but they wanted to go up together, stay together, and they just need to keep that, keep that togetherness, because, like you said, there's no reason why they can't beat even teams in the top half, let alone the teams around them. But the only way they're going to do that is to get it right in match day. Home advantage. Like with Bradford, their pitch, they can.
It's very small.
Constraint. They can make that work. They've got some quality middles, and So obviously, I've got them right down there. I really have. But I hope that they work hard, compete hard, and pick up a couple of big scalps along the way, and get, if it does end up being a bottom four, that they've got a chance of not being in it. That's all they can hope for. But I don't think they can hope for playoffs. It's simple as that.
Just quickly, Jimmy, why do you think Liam Finn decided to leave Dewsbury? Obviously, after getting him up, he's got him up there. Why not stay and keep the job?
Dewsbury,
carry it on.
I think for many years, Dewsbury and Mark, the owner there, and where the club is, they're kind of very honest and open about, this is what we're going to be for the foreseeable future, unless anything changes. And he's very open and honest about that with his players and his staff. They view themselves as a club where you can go as a player, and it could be a good opportunity for you to prove yourself. We're not going to be competing for trophies. We're not going to be competing for, except for once we got relegated. And I think for Finney, his stock was so high after a great year with Dewsbury. It was such a great opportunity to move into a championship team that a big club, established. Yeah. They should be in the playoffs again, and hopefully, and it's probably just too good an opportunity for him, knowing that what sadly Dewsbury are in for this year. They're going to find it very hard to be doing much outside of a bottom 4 or 5. I think so. It was probably too good to resist that opportunity. And I'm sure he got a handshake on his way out, and everyone understood. So
you've got Dewsbury.
They've got to be bottom 4.
In the bottom 4.
They've got to be, for me.
I hate to say this, but I've probably got them, bottom 2. I think it's a very short return and back to League One. I hope I'm proven wrong, because obviously there's a great club there, and like I say, Mark Sawyer. I think he famously said, he's run the club for 25 years and he's never had a winding up order or a bill's been paid late. So clearly he loves the club, does Mark Sawyer. He's a real down to earth rugby league man who clearly, invests and keeps rugby league in Dewsbury going.
Yeah, and not in a reckless way, in a very honest, open way, which is going to make it hard for him. But
Joe, where have you got him?
Same. I think it's going to be a tough year. If you see him have injuries early on, it's going to be a very, very tough year. Otherwise, let's hope they can come up with some magic and build on what they started to build last year with a very good young core, which I'd really like to see. And
it's interesting, isn't it? So obviously we're going to do both these clubs together. So we've done the Dewsbury Rams, who obviously finished top. They got that automatic place. Yeah. Doncaster obviously went through the playoffs and had that win against North Wales at the Keep Moat. For mine, I've got Doncaster finishing higher in the table
than Dewsbury.
Yes.
Totally. That's what I mean. I think, in a weird way, I always feel sorry for the team that goes up through the playoffs from League One, because they have next to no time to recruit. Maybe this year was because of all the things going on. There was arguably a few more players left around. Dewsbury knew they were going up really early on in the year, but because of where they stood financially and what they wanted to do, there was no benefit to it really, other than they could secure a few of their players saying, we're going to be in the champ, do you want to come up with us? Donny had to do an awful lot of business late on. Had they got promoted early, they probably could have recruited even better, and because they had a budget. So I do think Carl and the team there have done all they can. I don't think they've been reckless. I think they've adding players like Paulie, who is such an X-factor player, and Lover-Doer. They're two players alone who can win games, and alongside all the players that they've kept and one or two other additions. I agree. In fact, if anyone can be a bit of a surprise package this year, it's probably Donny.
Yeah.
Do I think they'll be able to stay in it throughout the year when the inevitably start picking up injuries and the lad? I think the training schedule is not your typical championship training schedule, which might work well to an extent. It also might mean that it's a different level champ to League One, isn't it? So I can see them having a really good start. They've got York first game. If they win that and get off to a flyer, because I think York will be in the playoffs this year, then that could set the tone for their season. So I don't think they'll make the playoffs, but I don't think they'll get drawn into a relegation battle.
And one thing, when I spoke to Richard on the other Friday and asked him this question, I said, Richard, you've rewarded a lot of the squad from last season. So there is, like you say, changes with the strengthening, but that core Doncaster squad is a lot of what was in League One last season. So he is rewarded, obviously, that success of finishing in the playoffs and then obviously winning the final to win promotion to the championship. I agree with you, Jimmy. When you look at the Doncaster 17, if you're going down to the Keepmoor, you're in for a hell of a roller coaster ride. You're not going to find it easy.
No.
But again, it's how quickly I think they acclimatise to the vigours of the championship season. Because one thing we all know about rugby league is in League One last year, it was very, very stop-start.
Yeah.
There were blank weekends galore. And that's one area what Richard Horn, the coach, conveyed to me is how do we deal with that? Because we are bringing a core squad where there was a lot of frustrated Sunday afternoons, where now you've gone from having that luxury of, we're not playing for another 2 weeks. We're now bang York, bang Toulouse, bang Bradford.
And not only
bang,
that, in the League One as well, there was so many games which were guaranteed wins. It was more how many.
Yes, so against some of the lower teams.
Back to back, which is what I thought with Keighley last year. It's the same thing, the relentlessness of a champ. Not to mention that there's going to be two 1895 and potentially 2 or 3 Challenge Cup games before the season started. It's going to be relentless and hard for him. But they have got a couple of exciting additions in there. And it's a lovely place to play rugby, isn't it? It's a lovely place to go and watch.
It is one of the.
I'm glad to see
the standout stadiums.
Because it's a great.
It rivals York's. It rivals Toulouse's. It's probably in the top 3 of the championship. I've got Doncaster around 8th, 9th. That's where I've got him in my head based on what I've seen so far in that pre-season game against Hull FC. I know it was a heavy defeat, but they did post 24 points, and I liked some of the combinations that were on show. I've got him 8th or 9th. If they were to say bottom 4 relegated, I know you're probably watching this, Carl. I don't think you have anything to worry about. I'd have you still safe. So yeah,
I've got him
9th.
I've got him 9th.
Oh, there you go, Joe. What's on Donny quickly?
Yeah, I think he's recruited the lads from overseas, the Australian, New Zealand, Fijian market. He's got a lot of them in, obviously Paulie Loverdoers, a couple more in there as well. Some of the ex-Cass players, I forgot the name, a bit rude of me to forget the names, but there's the 2 or 3 from Cass who were at Cass.
Got Tyler Heppian, haven't they?
Tyler Heppian also. I think they've got their overseas recruiting. If there's one place where overseas people thrive, it's behind Carl. He's got the bar and he's got the Kiwi bar. The vibe's always chilled. It's always brilliant. I think that will suit the Highland lads coming over and playing, because sometimes they have a different way about them than the English lads. But I think Carl knows how to handle that perfectly, and if there's anyone to get the best out of him, he will. So yeah, I think they'll have a great year. I've got mentioned obviously show me lad Alex Sutcliffe, who joined up with us. Sutty, yeah, he should have a brilliant year. They've just got a good team, haven't they? They've got a good team, and I think they should comfortably stay up.
It was at Leeds and Cass when he Sutcliffe.
Yeah, Cass last year.
Remember watching him coming through. So Joe, where have you got him?
8th and 9th, yeah. I've not studied the league.
We've all kind of agreed around that time, yeah.
Upper end of the second half of the table.
Yeah, I suppose. Do either of you think that they could sneak into the playoffs? I know that
110%.
Do you? Right.
Well, that's every team. I think there's generally not a team. There's about 2 teams.
They are my dark horse. Doncaster are my dark horse. They're my dark horse.
I think that they'll be, but I don't think they'll be able to sneak into the playoffs. I don't think they'll get dragged into it, but I don't. Yeah. I think there's a gap. I think there's a top group and a bottom group in this table.
I generally think any team. I've got 2 or 3 teams that I think can't, and everyone else I think it's a free for all.
Moving on. Well, we've just done Dewsbury and Doncaster. Unfortunately, Jimmy's had to leave due to time constraints. But yeah, thank you for watching, everybody who's commenting. And by the way, if you are watching live or you're watching this in the future, please comment below. Do you agree with any of our predictions on our assessment of where each club is going to be? Are they going to finish higher, lower, or are they remaining the same in 2024? Well, we've just done Dewsbury and Doncaster. Very contrasting predictions, Joe, for the new boys coming up from League One. We're now going on to, obviously, another South Yorkshire club, the Sheffield Eagles, who had a fantastic year by their standards. I know there's a lot of excitement around Sheffield at the moment. I spoke to Mark Aston at the Super Championship launch, and without saying that they are definitively leaving Olympic Legacy Park, their new home, for the brand new stadium that's being built with Sheffield FC. The football club, more on that, he said, would come out during the season. There is a lot of optimism. Sheffield do have a new owner who's putting some money in, which is enabling Mark to put a really competitive squad together. And you were at the game, I do believe, on Sunday, were you not?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
So you can tell us firsthand how you think about it, Joe, because, you look at that Sheffield Eagles spine, you think about Matty Marsh, who's come from York, you've got Ben Jones-Bishop, James Glover, who once upon a time Bradford were in for, who I think is one of the, championship centres. Obviously, Matty Dawson-Jones, the halves, Anthony Fackwick, Corey Ashton. And then, as Jimmy said, he always goes on about that forward pack. A show me player, Mitch Clark's gone there.
Not show me. No, sorry, Mick.
He's not a show me anymore.
No.
Mitch, what you doing? Mitch, get back with boys. But no, give us what excited you about Sheffield on Sunday when you saw them in action? I've not seen them in the flesh yet this year.
I can't say one man, but obviously my podcast partner himself, I've got to give him a hat trick. Like I said, we had the young winger Neil Chamembe. we were so excited to watch him play, and then I saw him opposite Bish and went, oh, it might be a tough day for old Neil. And that's all credit to Neil, but Bish could still be a Super League winner. I think he scored 3, played unbelievable. I think Bish, he's just a class above. Disappointments, Mick, I've got to be straight for what I saw. Pack didn't do as well I thought they would, this revered Pack. Didn't do that well. The young Hull KR players went toe for toe with him, which
that's promising.
Which promising for KR, but Sheffield's Pack should be dominating young Hull KR play. Obviously George King and that went toe for toe, and it was a good match. And then the youth of KR come on and actually can't say did better than George and them, but obviously the young ones had something to prove, and they did. And they went, and so I don't know. I'd say that would be my worry, but they've got the reputation. The Pack's got the reputation, but it didn't quite perform against the KR side. The strike they've got, like you said, Chris Wellham, Bish at one edge, the other edge obviously Glover, Matty Dawson-Jones. That they're the standouts. The halves are solid as a rock. Corey, Anthony Thackeray. When them two played the first 30 minutes, I believe. Or first half as such, and that's when Sheffield were playing well. I think Anthony Thackeray is awesome, and he set up 2 for Bish in that first half. The Pack's my worry. Just some big dudes, and I don't know if they quite had the fitness, the thing. They had one big carry and they'd go boom, and then they want much else coming. Whether they sort that out going into the season, but yeah, so. Strike edges, unbelievable. Obviously, you've not even mentioned Bailey Lou, Ryan Johnson, one of the biggest humans I've ever seen.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
We look after his little brother, who's not concerned because we think he's going to be a star, but the one thing is he's not filling out yet. And then I saw Ryan, I went, oh, that's no issue. It's all good. His name's Ben Johnson, Hull FC Academy. Watch out, because if he turns into Ryan, you've got to think. Yeah, so the edges are brilliant. Fozzie, come on, played awesome. Just the Pack didn't impress me, Mick. But that's meant to be one of the strong points in it. So I'd say
that's the kind of thing that Jimmy pushes. You know, Mitch Clark's gone there to strengthen. Titus Gwaza, got Oliver Roberts there. Last season they finished 4th. I spoke to Mark Ashton in depth and for an interview for the championship, and he's spot on his mark. He said, look, you know, last season we let ourselves down, you know, because we got beat by Whitehaven twice. You know, we lost to Swinton. You know, those games where he called it, the players have that half-assed attitude where they're not fully engaged in what the club wants to achieve and what the team wants to achieve.
Well, that showed up again.
And that showed up when you're getting beat by Whitehaven. No disrespect to Whitehaven.
No, it showed up at the KR. That was the thing. They won, but against that young side for toe, they should have won more comfortably.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Interesting. So, like, 4th, and you know, this is what I'm trying to say about the championship last year, because it was so tight, and I think it will be as tight again. You know, Bradford going on the back of those away wins at London and Sheffield. If Bradford hadn't have won those 2 games at the end of the year, Bradford could have finished it where Halifax were in 8th or 9th, and that's how tight it is and how tight it is, and that's why it's imperative. You know, you go out there and give 110% and try and win each game. Sheffield this year, I think they will be slightly lower. I've got them in a battle for the playoffs with Halifax, with Widnes, with York. Because in my head, I do have a very, very clear top 2 in Wakefield and Toulouse. And then for 3rd down, when you're throwing in a Bradford, a Featherstone, a Halifax, a Sheffield. If we're saying Batley are going to be there or thereabouts again, you can't have all those teams in there, sure. You know, so there is going to be 3 big teams or 3 established championship teams, maybe even 4 if Doncaster, as we're predicting, are going to be mid-table, maybe pushing on the edges. You know, 3 big teams are going to be missing out, just like they did last year. But yeah, I've got Sheffield in and around the playoffs, but slightly lower than 4th.
Yes.
Don't just copy me, but you tell me what you think.
I'll stick.
You still think they'll be 4th?
I think they'll be 4th or 5th. Yeah. So I'll stick.
Well, that's effectively what I'm trying to say.
I think it'll be tough for them to, like you said, to lose Wakey probably up there.
Yeah.
There's one other team that I think will be coming on that I think will be up there now. I think it's finally their year.
We'll move on to York in a moment. I know I can mind read.
So yeah, I think stick 4th.
Yeah. No worries. Well, let's do Swinton Lions. They had a thumping win against North Wales Crusaders in their first competitive outing. Halves are obviously Det Patton, and I think it's Jordan Gibson, and obviously a good friend of mine, Alan Kilshaw, Killer. He's now at Swinton. He's back over in Lancashire. He had a great year with Unsley, by and large, last year. But then obviously towards the end, I think there was a lot of disruption. There was the injury to Miles Lawford, and they lost a couple of key players with injuries. And sadly, their sort of season just kind of petered out. But, Alan Kilshaw, we know what you're going to get with Swinton, Joe, don't you? When you talk about championship, you're talking grubby, you're talking physical. Swinton there is going to scrap in the mud and fight for every point.
Is it Saints or Wigan? It's one of them that are dual reg with them.
It's St Helens because we're going to do in I was shocked the other day. We're going to do in Wakefield, Midlands. We're going to do in about 3 or 4 different clubs. Yeah.
So if it's Saints again, that helped them out a lot last year.
Yes,
didn't it? That pulled them out of some trouble.
I remember a game against Bradford, and they had, I forget the players' names. There were 4 or 5 of them, and at that point, George Delaney, they were really struggling, Joe, with Swinton, with bodies. And that's, again, very similar to Dewsbury. I think Swinton, a lot of it is going to come down to strength in depth and how they potentially use that dual reg partnership. But certainly, it looks like, I was talking to Ian Rigg, who's their media officer, he's like, against St Helens, I think they beat the young kids with a Conrad Harrell playing and a sprinkling of other first team players. But it does look like at this moment in time they've got the Det Patton that is switched on, that is energised, that's engaged, that wants to do his damnedest for Swinton. And again, last season they were in that relegation battle. I've got them in and around that, but again, the problem with the championship this year is I do think everybody. Majority of strength, and so the standards are going up all the time. But you're going to have teams in that relegation battle. And I just don't know if Det Patton has that appetite. And I'm sorry, Dick, this is not a criticism, but, I'm judging you on your time at Bradford, whereby you were very hot and cold. If you get the Det Patton that started the season against Dewsbury when Bradford put 40 points on them in round 1, then yes, you get, you've got a good player. But if you don't get that version of Det Patton, and you get the Det Patton that featured against Barrow in both games where, there's a lot of ill discipline and it's a very poor performance. I'm not saying one man makes a team, by the way, but, he is the marquee signing for Swinton Lions. But I've got Swinton in my head. I've got them in that relegation battle alongside Dewsbury.
Where did they come again in the league?
Last season, they just narrowly escaped relegation at the expense of Keighley.
Yeah, I'll go stick to that standard.
Because they had an absolutely. Don't you remember? They went to Halifax on the last day of the season and they won. Yeah. And Paul Keighley got relegated by not 4 points in actual points accumulated on the differential. One try relegated Keighley, and I've got a lot of love for Keighley, the owners, Cowie and Ryan. But yeah, what a way to get relegated. You get relegated because you conceded 74 at Odsal against Bradford. If you'd have conceded 68, you'd have stayed up.
Yeah, with you.
Very fine margins. Let's do the York City Knights. Andrew Henderson, infectious. Love his enthusiasm. They scraped into the playoffs last year, finished 6th. And what a great ride they had. Obviously, they only made it to week 1 and that defeat at Odsal against Bradford. But that unbeaten run that they took right up to that playoff game against Bradford, I remember midweek, they went to Whitehaven last year and they were in the bottom. They were in the bottom and they'd been beaten at Whitehaven. And I actually posted a tweet saying something along the lines of, no club is too big to avoid relegation in this division if you don't turn up and, you don't follow the processes and effectively. You, again, to quote Mark Aston, if you turn up half-assed, you will get beat. The championship, there's no place to hide. But there's a lot of excitement at the York Knights in 2024, Joe. You said finally it might be coming together on the field. Obviously, last season, it's well documented, that slow start. It was due to the injuries. I'm not quite sure however bad the injury list was, but
it was really bad.
Clearly,
really
it had a massive impact. Because I remember round 3 or 2, Bradford went there and they still had a very good team. In fact, they beat Bradford in that game. But look, Andrew Henderson, Clint, There's a lot of excitement there at the LNER Stadium. The women's team are clearly one of the heavyweights in the Women's Super League. Is this the year, Joe? York Knights, they show the championship, what they're all about.
Yeah, I think it is, because I think the injuries, it's probably the pitch, innit? The pitch, and they train on a 4G. That's tough on the body. And if I think that might be something I don't want to assess their whole injury crisis, but I think that might be something to do with it. I think they've got depth now, though, Mick. I think where they struggled last year in depth, they were pulling players from every random loan clubs in that game. They had players who had never played a game before. They were putting them in the youth product. They've now got enough depth to survive some injuries where last year they didn't, and it really cost them. I think Clint's not learnt his lesson, but definitely made sure that won't be an issue. The depth they've got. I think it's just they're raving about Richie Myler. Whatever you think of some of his things, is they're saying they just can't believe how good he is. They've got Will Dagger.
I was going to say Will Dagger for Matty Marsh, and
Dagger, who they're raving about, said they can't believe you've still got the youth. You've got AJ Tausch, who's played 3 years now, last 2 or 3 years been nominated as Young Player of the Year at wing. He's now going into his third or fourth year, his third year starting, and he's played over 50 champ games and he's 21. He's probably going to be a Super League player in the next, you know what I mean? That's his, hopefully with York.
Is he show me, boy?
Yeah, you can probably tell, can't you? But there's no other, you won't be able to tell me another young player who's played as many games as him, because there isn't none, to be fair to him. You've got Miles, who's right there, an injury. Miles is straight in. They brought in talent everywhere. I just think it's there. They've got half-backs, they've got depth in half now where they never had before. They were playing Jesse D, they were pulling everyone to have a stint at half-back last year. And I just feel like they've got it right this year. The vibe's brilliant. They're all excited to play. Higher. Higher
than 6th?
Yeah.
Wow. Big call. To be fair, I've actually got
They've got Alex Donaghy now, who played every game at Newcastle. And I love Alex. Think he's going to be a great player, but he's probably third choice in fullback, third choice fullback, third or fourth choice halfback. Can play winger, so they've got him to cover about 5 positions.
They've clearly got that strength and depth in case the injuries bite.
Miles can play second row, centre, fullback, winger. They've got depth everywhere and good depth, and them half-backs, the spine. Talk about the spine. Will Jubb, just an absolute animal of a man. Then you've got Myler, Hingano, Harris. You pick between them 3. Who's going to start? Probably Myler, but pick who's in the video. And then fullback, you've got, like I said, Dagger starting. You've just
by all accounts, he had a real good game.
Brown can play anywhere. It's just
Joe Brown, another former Bradford lad, can obviously play fullback, can play halves, can play wings.
I think they've got it right. They've been building for 5 or 6 years, and it's their year. Probably can't win it with Wakey there, but I think they'll challenge everyone.
Well, Joe's gone higher. I'm going higher. I've got him firmly in, and I'm sure Andrew Henderson's enthusiasm is not misplaced. They had a big thumping win against Newcastle on Saturday in the 1895 Cup. You can't really judge that result on its own, because obviously Newcastle and what they've gone through as one of the sides who were relegated, and then their owner pulling the funding out. But still, whichever side's in front of you to put 114 points is really interesting. And I think the interesting game is going to be that York versus Wakefield game at the LNER Stadium in the 1895, because that, Joe, for me, will tell you just how competitive York are going to be. I mean, if Wakefield go there and put 40 on them, there might be perhaps a bit of, flashing sign. But if that's as close as I think it will be, I think York-Wakefield in the 1895 Cup this weekend, Joe, it'll be just as close as the Oldham Halifax game. I think they'll keep it really tight and tense. And if Bradford weren't at Dewsbury on Sunday, I would be at the LNER Stadium, because I think that is going to be an absolute humdinger. Big game and a big test for Andrew Henderson, and of course a good test for Wakefield under Darryl Powell. But yeah, we've both got York finishing higher. We'll move on to Wakefield Trinity. They're the side that have come down. They've got a new owner in Matt Ellis. I was in the new stand at the Championship launch show. It all appears to be coming together nicely for Wakefield. At long last, they've got an owner who clearly cares. And it's not just about, caring about on the field. We're talking off the field, which is a lot of what IMG are focusing on clubs now, with stadiums and big screens and LED boards and car parking spaces and hospitality boxes. I know we shouldn't be looking at that, but that's how clubs get the minimum standards. But on the field, I know the floodlights went off after 60 minutes, but they pushed Wigan, a very strong Wigan side, pretty much all the way, and they were winning 22-12. And as you said, they've spent a bit of money. They've gone in, the transfer kit has been opened up. And when I spoke to Darryl Powell about Miles Lawford joining and also Lachlan Walmsley, Darryl said because he's come in so late in the day, they've had to pay the transfer fee. They've had to pay the £50,000 to Halifax for Lachlan Walmsley. They've had to pay Bradford the reported £40,000 compensation, the young player compensation. So, it's clearly a very different breed of Wakefield to what we've come accustomed to. Because I always remember Wakefield under Michael Carter and John Minard, they wouldn't be seen in a Waitrose or a Booths. It'd be the 99p or below store or a pound stretcher. Michael Carter, I love him or loathe him, he looked after the purse. And all of a sudden, Matt Ellis is in and the checkbook's out. But they are assembling a very, very capable team. And I don't say this lightly. I think Wakefield will do a Featherstone Rovers like they did last season. And that's no disrespect to any of the clubs. I know Jimmy probably wanted me to mention this, because if Jimmy was here, we'd say it. Jimmy's like, are they actually going to get beaten? I'm sure they will, and I'm sure they will suffer a few defeats. But, you look at Jermaine McGilvery, Lachlan Wormsley, they've kept, they've got stalwarts like Jay Pitt still in there. Liam Hood, they've kept the majority of the side, and I think it's going to be really, really interesting how Darryl, if they are turning up every week and winning comfortably, how does he keep that fresh? Because as we saw with Featherstone, you don't want to be consistent to the point where when the games that matter, you burn out and run out of steam and get beat, and ultimately your season ends in tatters.
Yeah, I think, like you said, playoffs apart, full time. Invested money, that talks, doesn't it? Unless, obviously Newcastle's the saddest story of all time, innit? So I guess it doesn't talk for them, but for every other team in history, it talks, and that's where it's at, innit? I think that there's no way I don't want to say there's no way they don't win the league, but it would be the biggest shocking thing if they don't. Whether they make it in the playoffs, they should do, shouldn't they? But I think they win the league and crack on in Super League next year.
I'm hearing, again, I'm only telling you what I'm hearing, Joe, because of that new stand, Wakefield were actually deducted a point. As I put out months ago, people were slagging me off, but I was right. Cass and Wakefield currently get minus an IMG point because their stadiums don't meet minimum standards. Wakefield have already been told your stadium now meets minimum standards. So Wakefield, in effect, have already got that point. You add that to their total. Yeah. Wakefield already know they are in Super League next year for 2025.
And on the pitch, we said in the Super League show, we were at Paul McShane's testimonial speech. We were sat with Gailey, and Gailey went, it's a big statement, so I'm going to call him out. He said the left edge is as good as Cass's from 2017. He says it. Sorry, no, it didn't say it's as good. It says it reminds him of Cass's left edge from 2017, the way he plays.
Wow. Wow.
So Gailey's as high as that. Gailey didn't have a pint. Said, I'm not drinking, I'm not doing anything. He's all in on winning every game this year. They are in on winning it. Gailey not having a pint. I was devastated. I thought we'd have a good laugh, and he blew us all. He blew me and my dad. It was all out because he's that into winning this year, and it seems like the team is. The team everyone's in. Left edge should score. Lachlan Walmsley should score another. If he scored 40 odd for Halifax, he should score 60 this year, and it's could be a crazy year.
Championship edge defences, beware. Well, we can't really say higher or lower on Wakefield because obviously they got relegated, but I've got Wakefield finishing top and they will win the £1 million game.
Yeah, top.
2 more to do, Toulouse.
Bloody hell. We need to make it quick. Toulouse.
2 more to do, Toulouse.
Stick. I I don't know the ins and outs too much, Mick. You right?
They've pretty much kept the majority of what they had, and obviously one benefit is Ollie Ashall-Botto, of course, the sign from Huddersfield. He missed the majority of last season. He's now fully fit after his injury, so it's almost like getting another fresh player. I don't say this lightly, yes, in the Super League they lost home games, and yes, they took a game away from Toulouse against Featherstone and lost that at home, but they have not lost a home league game in Toulouse since 2019. That's in the Championship. We're not talking playoff games like the £1 million game against London, we're talking league games. They very, very rarely suffer defeat at home. So that home form for mine automatically puts them in the playoffs. Are they going to be as susceptible as they were last year, where they went to Bradford, they lost. They then went to Swinton and they lost. They lost a lot of games early doors on the road, which shocked a few people, because everybody thought, are Toulouse there for the taking. But obviously, they managed to restructure, regroup, refocus, and their home form carried them into that second place finish. And of course, they went to Featherstone and won at Featherstone. So that was obviously a massive result for them. And Sylvan Hules, who's been there now for 12, 13 years, you've got that continuity. Cedric Garcia, a good friend of mine. I've got Toulouse, Joe, like I say. I don't like making big, bold predictions, but I've got Toulouse second. I've got them outright second. And then I've got your Featherstones, your Bradfords, your Yorks, your Sheffields, your Halifax, fighting for those remaining spots. That's how I see the Championship in 2024. Let us know in the comments, please, who you think your top six are going to be and which two teams are going to get relegated, and then maybe we can revisit this in future months and say, hang on a second, but Toulouse, they've not strengthened as such. Sylvan's still saying he's going to Australia before the season starts, and they've still got the sort of lukewarm dual reg partnership with Catalans when injuries bite. But yeah, you know what you're getting with Toulouse. You're getting a very big physical, fast side who are very formidable at home. And one thing I will say about the Stade Ernest Wallon, for anybody who's not been there, that is the largest stadium in Rugby League, because it is a rugby union-sized arena. It is the full 100 metres. The in goals are 10 metres. And let me tell you, Toulouse love nothing more, Joe, than throwing that ball around and tearing opposition defences up the middle. So I think I've got them comfortably second. Yeah. I hope I'm wrong, so I don't want the champion. We're saying it's the best Championship ever, but we've got Wakefield head and shoulders. But I think if you isolate Wakefield and Toulouse, you've then got a massive cluster of clubs who can beat anyone on the day.
I'm putting Toulouse /lower, because I think the likes of, like they said, the Yorkshire, I think Bradford at home match them toe for toe now. So I think /lower, but they're still.
And the final, I've already said I'm sticking with second. I think they will be second. And the final club, Joe, Whitehaven. I think you've got a good relationship with the boys at Whitehaven.
Yeah, great friends.
They were in that relegation battle last year. How do you see Whitehaven in 2024? Obviously, there's no Josh Rourke anymore.
Well, I can't pronounce his name, but they said the man who they brought in at fullback, they're saying he's NRL standard, aren't they?
Don't ask me to pronounce, because I'm a broadcaster and I've got to learn the phonetic spelling and the phonetic pronunciation.
They're talking NRL. They said he should have been an NRL player. They can't believe they've got him. I'm good friends with Ashley White.
I love Ashley up there.
They rave about him non-stop, saying how good this fullback is. So they've got him. I think they've recruited just really well. Jake Mason coming in, obviously know how good of a World Cup he had, didn't quite go right for Halifax, but I think pre-season they're raving about him. He might be made club captain. They're saying they've got a young player who I'd say everyone look out for. He was at Newcastle but did his ACL, Evan Lawfer. He's an absolute machine. He had 2 or 3 clear breaks at the weekend. They've got talent. They've recruited really well. I really like their recruiting. Rio Corkill, another one that's come in.
I remember Rio Corkill's performance against Bradford last year for Barrow. Real good, strong signing.
I think they've got Jake Carter, who they got from Barrow halfway through the year last year. He's a brilliant champ player, one of the understated halfbacks in the league. I think they're going to surprise people, can they? They need props, and they need props very, very badly. If not, they could be in trouble. But
which is a bit of a shock, because you always imagine when, on my perception of playing your Barrow, Workington Barrow, when you're going up to Cumbria. Yeah. I know, I'm sick of hearing it. It's like a rugby league euphemism. Oh, that when we go up to Cumbria, as if. But what people don't realise is Whitehaven. I say this every year when I do the radio broadcast. They are the perfect ambush predator, and what I mean by that is you're a Halifax or a Bradford or a Swinton or, whoever going up there, you're on the coach for 3.5 hours. You get there and it's normally lashing it down. No offence, but the facilities are quite primitive. We're not talking LED boards and brand spanking stands. We're talking dusty seats and rust everywhere. If I actually did the maths once. Whitehaven, Barrow, Workington, whether it's Championship or League One, they hit you so hard that you're still cold coming off that bus of that journey. And if they get a couple of early tries, they very rarely lose. And that's why I call them ambush predators. I think Whitehaven's home form is key to their survival.
Their outside backs this year, I think, are going to be phenomenal, and they've got depth in them positions, as I went over. The half backs, they've got Jamie Doran, class to be fair to him. Like you said, I think they've brought in an Australian who they're raving about again. They've got Jay Carter. They've got depth everywhere except props. So if they can bring in a few props, no doubt about it.
Well, Whitehaven, as we know, when they brought Lachlan Walmsley over, and from South Sydney again,
they can recruit from Australia. Dad mentions Lee is the best recruiters in Australia. I'd go Whitehaven.
Whitehaven certainly in the Championship in my books. Sure.
Bring over players that you never heard of, never dream of, and they always seem to do well.
All is said and done, where are we putting Whitehaven? Because they were in that relegation battle last year with your Barrows, your Swintons, your Keithleys again. Swinton winning on that final day, and Whitehaven not getting pumped by Toulouse in their final outing kept them up.
I'll go higher.
You think they'll be higher? You think they'll be out of that relegation battle, or are you still keeping them in there?
Just out, yeah. I think they're the team just out of it. I think they've got enough talent. If this full back is as good as they're talking about, who knows where they could finish. They could shock a load of people, but we've not seen him yet, so we'll wait till we see him in action and we'll go from there.
Ashley, if you're watching, there you go. I don't know how much you're paying Joe for saying this. I'm only joking. I'll be honest. I think I've got Whitehaven very similar to last year. They are going to be in that dogfight at the bottom. It's a club close to me. I've had many lovely journeys up there, and it's clear that Rugby League does need that Cumbrian hotbed of Whitehaven, Workington, and Barrow. And it's very disappointing every time I go up there and I'm like, oh, Cockermouth, Kells, some of these lovely community rugby league clubs, and they're like, oh, well, this area's lost its community side. They don't do open age anymore. They still do the juniors, which is good. But yeah, it's a lovely part of the world. Well, there we go. We have done our championship preview. I'm not quite sure who Jimmy had in what order, but I think we're all there or thereabouts on the same wavelength.
I'll check now.
We've got Wakefield. I think we've all unanimously. I know Jimmy's gone, but Jimmy did have Wakefield in the top.
We missed out Widnes.
Oh, we missed out Widnes.
Yeah,
we've missed out Widnes. I beg your pardon.
Let's just go quicker. We'll just go quicker.
There you go. Apologies.
You need to get onto your full 80, Mick. You need.
I can't be doing the full 80 for 2 hours. I hope you're enjoying this, by the way. We're loving it. Alan Coleman, yes. He's gone from Swinton to Widnes. A lot of people seem to think Widnes are in this sort of transition period, and I guess you are, because obviously John Keir got sacked last year, didn't he? And obviously Alan Coleman's come in. Chris Hamilton's there as CEO, the former Oldham owner. Widnes, for mine, pound for pound, Joe, they should be doing a heck of a lot better than they have done in recent years.
I can't. I think a lot. Where did they come last year?
Outside the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Stick. I think that's Stick at the moment. They've got a few things to sort out, haven't they? I think the purse strings have been tightened a bit. Let's get smarter with what we're doing with recruitment. So I'm saying Stick outside playoffs.
They've got an old Bradford boy in Liam Kirk, I do believe. So I do like Kirk, and I wish Liam Kirk the best. But yeah, I've not seen enough. I hadn't seen enough of Widnes. I know they pushed Warrington, a very youthful Warrington side, all the way the other evening. It was 46 points to 40. But you know what? I think probably one of the worst decisions that Widnes could have ever done is get rid of that academy. Ollie Ashaw-Bott, for one, he come through a lot of the players who are at Wigan now come through that Widnes academy once upon a time.
Jared O'Connor, Sam Walters.
Yeah, Sam Walters, Jared O'Connor, Lewis Dodd. So
they could have got this loads.
I know it's all if buts and maybes, and you've got to say that Lewis Dodd, Sam Walters were never really, Jared O'Connor, were never going to stay at Widnes. But that's what I'm saying. When you think back to those players in the last 5 years who were coming through that Widnes Vikings academy, and I know it's around 5 years since they got rid of it, but that, to mine, has accelerated that terminal decline. And I do apologise. There'll be people who want us to probably go into more depth on Widnes, but I'm not absolutely clued up on where they are as a club. I just know that they are a passionate club. They've got a large fan base, one of the largest in the Championship, and you know that the club has failed those fans for a number of years now. But I hope you stick by them. And again, Widnes, who knows? You know, Alan Coleman, look what he did with Swinton last year. Against all the odds, everyone was saying Swinton are down, and they come up fighting and engineered famous wins against Toulouse and Sheffield. Touch wood, Widnes, and the revival starts, and they are challenging for the playoffs. Because I genuinely believe, Widnes as a real rugby league heritage and stranglehold. They should be up there. They should be challenging. They should be, putting pressure on a York, a Featherstone, a Bradford for those playoff places. But I think they will be mid-table again.
Right. What a show. We've done as long as the Super League one.
I thought this was going to be an hour, but it's been longer. So
how long has it been?
1:45.
Thank you for watching us. Joe, I'm signing off. Sit back down. Thank you for watching us. We love you to bits. We'll talk more Championship later. Thank you.